So exactly 3 years ago to the day, I got back from a 2-week-long vacation, walked into my office, and was told I was getting a 20% pay cut. It's not the worst way to come back from a trip ever. It's like, hey, Sean, how was your trip? Oh, wait, before you jump into that, next week your paycheck's going to be about 20% lighter. And the week after that, the week after that. Really, we're not sure when we're going to be able to reinstate your pay. To make matters worse, this wasn't just any trip. This wasn't like a quick little jaunt down to Vegas with my friends or quick trip over to the beach. No, I'd saved up for the better part of a year to go down to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil for the carnival celebration with my friends. I could use that. Brazil. So where was I? So I'd saved up for the better part of a year to go down to Rio de Janeiro for celebration in Brazil. And Brazil is one of the only places in the world where I can think of where it's socially acceptable to dress up like a member of the opposite sex, dance around like an idiot, and then jump off a cliff if you want to. Seriously, and that's exactly what I did. We went hang gliding over all of Rio. We went then down to Iguazu Falls, one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. And I even wore this ridiculous costume, which I swore I would never let anybody ever see again, and we danced around in front of 65,000 people in the actual carnival parade. I had done more in 2 weeks than I had done in years leading up to it. However, it wasn't until the second to last day of my trip that I truly had a life-changing moment. You see, I was sitting on Copacabana Beach, drinking a coconut, that coconut. And I couldn't think, like all I could think about was how great the last 2 weeks have been. It was 80 degrees and sunny, clear blue water. It was the end of February, and I'm from Portland, Oregon. It's not sunny in February. There was a bunch of Brazilian girls in bikinis playing volleyball right in front of us. If you're 24 years old, Brazil's like the best place you could ever go. And it hit me. I was like, I should be able to do this whenever I want. You see, I was getting ready to go back to a job, working 50 hours a week as an investment analyst, which I really did not like. I had no more vacation for the year, so 3-day weekends were out, no more sick days. And that trip to Vegas my friends were actually taking, yeah, that probably wasn't going to happen. And so I got to the point, and all I could think about is I never consciously decided what I wanted to do with my life. You see, leading up to this, I had simply been following the path of least resistance. I'd just been going down the path that was laid for me and was sitting on that beach that I made a decision to make a change. And ever since that moment, my life has never been the same. So now I want to ask you guys a question. Now that I've told you my little Brazil story, how many of you have experienced a similar situation to this? A time where you've been doing something you were super happy about. You're having a really good time, but you knew that in a couple days or a couple weeks, you were going to have to go back to a life that you didn't want to live. You know, maybe it was going back to a job you hated. Maybe it was going back to school to study something you were totally fond of. Have any of you guys experienced this? You know, maybe show of hands. All right. I'm looking at you. You're thinking back to your trip to Cancun, spring break. Yeah, I wouldn't want to come back from that either. Well, there's a good chance that like I was before my trip to Brazil, if you guys answered yes to that question, you were living out the traditional American dream. What is the traditional American dream? You know, it's that path. You turn 22, 23 years old. You are stoked to get your first real job. Like, can't wait to put on your suit and tie and have your desk. You cannot believe they're going to pay you and give you 2 weeks of free vacation. You get to go do whatever you want, get paid for it. Have you guys ever thought about what 2 weeks of vacation actually looks like? You know, for the first year or so, it's awesome. You're like, sweet, I'm going to go visit my friends and family on the holidays, take a couple trips with my friends. It's going to be awesome. Well, then a couple years down the road, you decide to get married. I mean, a nice woman from Minnesota. You got to go spend a couple weeks with the in-laws, or a couple days with the in-laws every year, so there's a few of your vacation days, and you keep going down this path. Finally, you decide to have kids. Well, unfortunately, as much as you would like to believe that your 2.5 kids are invincible, they're not. So your kids get sick, so you got to take some more of your vacation days to take care of your sick kids, and all of a sudden, you have no more vacation. And you keep going down this path, and 5, 10 years later, you're at the point where you've got 3 or 4 weeks of vacation, and you get to take a real vacation. You get to take a real trip. But it's not one of those trips you want to take. It's not like you're spending a month in the south of France. No, you get to take one of those trips where you spend more time worrying about what might happen than actually enjoying yourself. It's like you're taking the kids to Disneyland. What happens if Space Mountain's closed? Then our trip's screwed. What happens if it rains? No. I actually experienced a trip like this in January. I went to Vail, Colorado for a ski trip. And normally in Vail, there's like 100 inches of snow by now. When I was there was 16 inches. For those of you that don't ski, that's not skiing. That's like walking down the mountain on rocks. And it was kind of a last-minute trip for me. It was kind of a good time, but the story on the chairlift was always the same. Every person we talked to was miserable. These people had saved up their whole year to take this trip. In some cases, they've been doing it 15, 20 years. And they were so mad about the snow conditions or their favorite run being closed or their chipped-up skis from the rocks that they couldn't enjoy themselves. They were more stressed after they got back from the trip than they were before they left. That's the traditional path. Before I go any further, I want to make one thing very clear. There's nothing wrong with the traditional American dream. There's nothing wrong with this path. Many of you guys are going to go down this path and live very, very happy lives. The problem I have with it is most people that live out the traditional American dream do not choose to do so. No, they follow the path of least resistance. That's what your parents did. That's what your grandparents did. In fact, that's what society teaches you how to do. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I learned more about how to find a job and how to build a resume than I learned about anything else in school. Okay, you guys might be different. You guys are all smart. And that was a really difficult thing for me. They were putting you down a path where the most important thing was finding a job. It wasn't a matter of whether it was something you like to do or anything like that. And you know, I just kind of looked at that. I was like, something's wrong with this. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today we're here to talk about the new American dream, which is actually a very simple thing. There's 3 components in my mind for what the new American dream is. The first, as you might guess, it's conscious decision, choosing the path that you want to go down and what's going to make you happy. That's number 2, personal happiness, because if you're not happy, what's the freaking point of doing anything? Number 3, legacy. Over the last couple of years, I've met a lot of people, and there seems to be one common thread with everybody. Everybody wants to make a difference in one way or another. It doesn't matter if you're teaching your 5-year-old cousin how to do multiplication tables, or if you invent the freaking teleportation machine and change all of humanity from here to eternity. It just matters that you're making a difference in whatever that means to you. So that's the new American dream: personal happiness, conscious decision, and legacy. Now I want to tell you a story, and this is kind of fun because this is a story about someone who was speaking on this very stage last year. Her name's Jenny Blake. You see, Jenny is the epitome of an overachiever in my book. Every time I see Jenny, all I can think about is, man, I need to be more like you. But she also was the best example I can think of someone who's going down the traditional path. She got out of school, and she got a 6-figure job at Google. She had a house, she had a car. She had everything that she had been working for her whole life. But there was one problem. She never consciously decided what was going to make her happy. She had simply just been following the path, and she was doing a great job on that path, but it wasn't what was right for her. And Jenny wrote a book. She accomplished this goal last year. It was called Life After College. And last year, she traveled around the country. She took some time off from Google, traveled around the country, and promoted the book. She talked to people all along the way. She was talking to entrepreneurs. She was talking to adults and recent college graduates alike, and talking about what made them happy and what they wanted to do and helping them with their problems. She had a decision to make. She could either go back to Google and live this life she wasn't totally content with, or she could say, you know what, I'm going to take a chance, and I'm going to go do what makes me happy. Well, three months after getting off this stage, Jenny quit her job at Google. She quit her job, she moved to New York City, which had been a lifelong dream for her. And now on a daily basis, she teaches people how to deal with the decisions and how to make the big decisions that they're not able to do alone, that scare them. And so that's, in my mind, that's the perfect example of the American dream. What about me? Who am I? Why am I telling you all this stuff? Well, after that trip to Brazil, 3 months later, my boss came up to me and he said, Sean, if you can think of any creative ways to save the company money, I'd like to hear about them. We worked for an investment firm, and so, in 2009, the stock market was down, so I was like, all right, I can come up with something good. My best friend at the time had just quit his job and moved to Hawaii. And I used to talk to him on the phone every day, 1:15, he would call me. And he'd call me up, he'd be like, hey man, how's the day going? What are you up to? I was like, crunch some numbers, making some spreadsheets. Gonna go home, watch some reruns of Full House, maybe we'll Saved by the Bell if I'm lucky. And I'd be like, what are you up to? And he's like, not much, just got done surfing. I'm sitting in a coffee shop on the beach right now. I got to go into work later, doing this helicopter tour over Maui, and then we got something about like sunset dinner cruise or something. So, this is actually what he did. He worked for this concierge company, and that's what he did every day. Do you know what it's like being miserable and talking to your best friend every day when he's off doing that cool stuff? That's my definition of torture. Anyway, long story short, so my boss comes up to me. He's like, can you think of any ways to save the company money? So a couple months into this, I'm like sitting away, 50 hours a week, and it hit me. I should be able to do this from anywhere. I sit in front of my desk for 50 hours a week. All I need is a computer and internet. So I'm thinking I'm the smartest guy in the world. I went with my boss, and I was like, hey, boss, how about we try out a remote work agreement? You let me work from Hawaii. I'm going to build up the company. I'm going to meet new clients we wouldn't have met otherwise. We'll meet via conference call 3 times a week, and best of all, I'll take a 50% pay cut in order to do it. Genius, right? Seemed like a win-win. Took my boss a month to get back to me. And he called me in one day, said, Sean, 3 p.m., my office, we're going to talk about your proposal. So I call up Ryan. I was like, dude, roll out the red carpet. Get the Mai Tais ready. I'm coming to Hawaii. I was excited. My boss calls me into his office. It's 3 p.m., and he's like, Sean, we are not going to accept your proposal. But we will accept this as your resignation. You can imagine the look on my face. I was really thinking this was going to work. My shirt was Hawaiian shirt was pressed, ready to go. No, you're out of here, buddy. Sorry, that doesn't work for us. I have never been so scared in my life. At that moment, I was absolutely terrified. For any of you that have experienced something similar, you know that. It's like your heart just drops, and you're like, oh man, how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay my car bills? What are my friends and family going to think? I am a failure at life. Well, okay, I wasn't a failure at life, but I felt like it for a minute. And the thing was, deep down, for as hard as that was, I knew that I was not happy. I knew that I was not living a life that I was happy about, but I was still terrified. So now I want to ask you guys a favor. Now that we're talking about fear, at the count of 3, I want you to shout out the thing you are most afraid of in the world. Can you guys do that for me? All right, 1, 2, 3. Oh, you guys all had the exact, how is that possible? You guys all had the exact same answer, because there's only one fear in the world. I don't know if you guys know this, there is only one fear in the world. You know what that is? It's uncertainty. Uncertainty is the world's only fear. It's like I heard some random things. I heard like spiders, death, aliens. Think about it, think about it. You're not afraid of spiders, you're afraid of the uncertainty surrounding whether or not that spider is gonna bite you. Not afraid of death, you're afraid of the uncertainty surrounding what happens when you die. And you are definitely not afraid of aliens. You're afraid of the uncertainty surrounding what happens when they beam you back up, and the uncertainty surrounding what they're going to do to you. You see, uncertainty is one of the most powerful forces in the world. And it can be powerfully positive, or it can be powerfully negative. And you guys right now, you're probably like, what does this have to do with the American dream? Well, Tim Ferriss once said, most people will choose unhappiness over uncertainty. And I really believe this is true. The traditional American dream is rooted in uncertainty. I mean, that's what it's all about. You think about it, there's all these people that are 40, 50, 60 years old. They're unhappy with their lives because they're afraid of the uncertainty. They're afraid to take that risk. Think about it, you're a 50-year-old guy, you're making $100 grand a year, but you hate your job. What's easier, to be like, screw you job, I am out, I'm gonna go start a business and move to Thailand? Or be like, I got a bonus, I'm gonna go home, watch some Dancing with the Stars, and drink beer. I mean, honestly, most people have a tough time making the tough choices, and they will choose unhappiness over uncertainty. There's 3 main components to uncertainty. There's 3 phases of uncertainty. The first, fearing it. This is where most people spend their lives. They would rather go down the traditional path. They would rather be moderately unhappy or settle for okay, rather than doing the stuff that really gets them excited and the stuff they really want to do. This is where I was when I was at that moment in my life where I had just lost my job. I was terrified. All I wanted to do was curl up into a ball and go back to work on Monday, even though I knew it wasn't right. Well, a couple weeks after that, a couple months go by, and you get to phase number 2, overcoming the uncertainty. I was still terrified. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I finally said, you know what? If I don't do something now, I'm going to be unhappy for the rest of my life. So I quit my job and I moved to Thailand. Moved to Thailand 2 months after that, figured I can live for cheap, I can start a business, and I can start overcoming my fears. Was I terrified? Yeah, but I was gonna do it anyway. Finally, you get to phase number 3, embracing the uncertainty. If you can embrace the uncertainty, you're recognizing that you don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow, next week, next year, next month. Therefore, you can make anything you want happen. As an entrepreneur, I look at that as the greatest gift you could possibly give me, because if everything was certain, where would we be? There would be no Steve Jobs, there would be no Bill Gates. If everything was certain, there would be no technology. I mean, nothing would move forward in life. And so uncertainty can be one of the most powerful things in the world if you let it. I'm gonna tell you one more story. The day I got back from Brazil last year, I realized, it hit me, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was unhappy. And so I started writing out every single thing that I wanted to do before I died. And this was actually much harder to do than I thought it was gonna be, but I started writing out this list. Since I wrote that list 3 years ago, I've crossed off 27 things. I've run a marathon, I've climbed a mountain, I lived on a tropical island, I created a successful business. Even today, I crossed something off that list by speaking in front of a large group of people. If you get one thing out of my talk today, I encourage you to think about what you want to do in your life. Make a conscious decision about what's going to make you happy. 50 years from now, what story do you want to be able to look back and tell? What do you want to be able to say you've done? If you don't start thinking about this now, you're never going to do it. This might be the cheesiest thing you guys hear all year, but there are only 7 days in a week, and someday is not one of them. If you keep saying you're going to do it someday, I promise you, it is not going to come. It's cheesy, but it's true. It's cheesy, but it's true. The future of the American dream lies at the crossroads of fearing uncertainty and embracing it. And if you can get the guts, if you can get the courage to make the difficult choices and embrace the uncertainty in your life and go after what's really going to make you happy, there is absolutely no telling what you can do. Thank you.